And then in 1973, the land itself came under attack. Huge moving sand dunes had rolled in from the coast to threaten the fertile southern farmlands of Chalambod. From its earliest days, the revolution had tried to contain them, but despite willing volunteers, its resources were limited. Something had to be done, something definitive, something on a national scale, and plans were drawn up for the battle ahead. Within a matter of weeks, the power and determination of the nation could be seen. Workers and farmers from towns and villages throughout the land poured in to help. At their peak, they numbered 11,000. Their scheme was unique, so simple and cheap that it bordered on genius. Drought-resistant scrub and cacti were brought in. Beneath a thin scattering of topsoil, these were planted in rows to bind the dunes and hold them. Foreign experts advising the government at the outset had costed the problem's solution in millions. Millions Somalia never could afford. Today, these same experts come here to Chalambod to marvel and study in their own turn. The dunes have been halted in a mere few months, proving the old proverb, wherever there's a will, there's always a way. The sands were beaten, but nature was cruel, attacking immediately from another flank. Now it was the nomads' turn to suffer. A blistering drought hit the country's northwest. Trees were blasted, the earth parched. Livestock died, and the people with them. Appeals for help poured in from the afflicted zones. Government supplies were rushed to the stricken region, followed by massive international aid. Throughout the disaster zone, relief camps were set up and clothing, food, medicine and vital water provided. An early visitor to the zone was President Siad himself, come to judge with his own eyes the extent of the damage and the effect of the relief work. As he walked among the victims, his distress was plain to see. In his mind, an old dream became a firm decision. These people have lost everything they had, and our task is clear. We must assure them of a stable environment in the future, and we can only do so by uprooting and resettling them on the southern farmlands. Only by resettlement here or along the coast and retraining as farmers and fishermen can we guarantee them any future. Somalia's two great southern rivers, the Juba and Shabelle, enclose a vast and fertile floodplain as yet only part developed for agriculture, and it was here that the nomads would be resettled. The operation was far from easy. 120,000 people had volunteered to make the move and traveled from the relief camps to a central dispersal point in the north. From here, they would be transported to their new homes in the south and east in one great move by road and air. For the future farmers were settlements at Kurtemware, Sablale, and Dujuma. For the fishermen at Brawe, Ail, and Abdale. And so, on June the 18th, 1975, the great trek began. Families who had somehow saved their homes from drought and earlier moves dismantled them. Precious possessions were packed and stowed away for a journey that would take them from everything they had ever known and into a future far removed, at which they could only guess. Infants and invalids were carried onto waiting lorries. Papers were checked as whole families moved together. The entire nation's transport resources had been mobilized and others borrowed from abroad. 16 landing strips had been built for 24 huge transport planes, while over 600 lorries took on the rest. In lorry after lorry, covering hundreds of miles, the new farmers moved south. Within days, the first arrivals reached Kurtimwari, and local people turned out by the score to greet and welcome them to a new life far removed from the old. Even the mud and rain which greeted them also must have seemed a godsend after the horrors of drought. Neat rows of tents stood ready and waiting as temporary accommodation for those whose houses had been destroyed back in the north. While those who had saved theirs set to quickly rebuilding them in the new settlement. Meanwhile, the future fishermen were also on the move, southwards and east to their new homes along the coast. Day after day, the huge convoys rolled, carrying their precious cargo to safety and a new life. The first arrivals in Adale. Wherever the refugees went, they met with the same warm reception. Here too, as in Kurtimwari, houses had had to be built to accommodate the new settlers. And no sooner had they settled in than schools started for the children. For those of the farmers in the open air, while here in the fishing town of Brawe, their brothers found a schoolroom already built and waiting. Nor were the children the only ones to take lessons. Most of these men had never even seen the sea, yet their new life demanded not only that they see it, but learn to enter, swim, and survive in it as well. Retraining began for the farmers also. At both Kurtimwari and Dujuma, the nomads were allocated 18,000 hectares of undeveloped land, which, under expert guidance, they would be expected to make productive within 2 years. For the fishermen, a first necessity was to learn of the different species of fish off Somalia's coast, of their shape, size, and value. While the farmers learned of the best crop strains to plant in a given soil. And then there were their tools, the nets, boats, and outboard motors of the fishermen. Without knowledge and care of these, however would they survive? Fishing is one thing, showing instant returns. Farming is different, needing more time and repaying its errors far more harshly. Here, patience and great thoroughness in preparing their land were the lessons the new farmers had to learn. And yet, a mere 3 weeks after their arrival on the coast, the day dawned for the fishermen's first real trial at sea. As the first nets were cast, so inland, the farmers sowed the seeds of their first harvest. It was a day of hard work, but jubilation. Certainly for the fishermen, their first outing was successful. But then Somalia's sea is rich. The fishermen could actually see and weigh the value of their work. For the farmers, success was not so instant. They had to have faith. But still, their hopes were high that what they had ploughed and sown would soon enough flourish also to repay them for their trust.